Hey, this is Cameron. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. Today we are going to look at how to start seeds indoors. Let's get busy. Well, as wintertime is gone and we're solidly in spring now, a lot of you, especially if you're in the colder climates in the country, have started seeds indoors. So that way, once that frost disappears, you're able to go out and put seeds into the garden. Here in Southern California, we don't have to deal with that frost situation as often. And so for us, when we're starting seeds indoors, it is because we're wanting to give them a little bit better jump because of the higher temperatures indoors than outdoors. But also, so that way we're able to quickly replace the plants that we have just harvested. That way when you've got something that's growing and growing all winter, once those come out, you don't then have to put seeds in the garden and wait for those seeds to slowly come up. What we're gonna do is we start something with like this seed starter here. It's a seedling tray, and we're able to get these growing and kind of can stagger them, and so that way once the ones in the garden are done, we can zip these out there and they're already fairly established plants. It takes our time from planting to harvest and just speeds that whole thing up. So what I'm going to be doing is utilizing a new grow light that I got from Spider Farmer, SF-1000. It's pretty awesome. I did a video of the unboxing. We're going to be hanging a light here in the garage. I want to talk about the anatomy of a seed tray really quick, and this is when you're wanting to germinate your seeds and create kind of thing. Usually it comes in three parts. You have the kind of most obvious thing, which are these little seedling trays rather. You have this overall bin here, and then you have this clear canopy that goes over the top of it. And these all three play a really important part. You can figure out what this is. This is where you put your seed starter mix. That then sits inside this tray, and this tray, as you can probably see, has these liners. This is by Jiffy, I think I got at Home Depot. And then you have this canopy, and what this canopy does is that moisture naturally kind of transpirates or evaporates from the top of the soil. It keeps the overall environment kind of like a little mini greenhouse. So rather than that moisture going off into the rest of the room here, it stays inside this. So there are a couple of things that we want to pay attention to when you're choosing a seedling starter. A seed starter, this one was really helpful just at Home Depot. A couple of things you want it to do. You want to make sure that it can stay moist, and you want to make sure that it's very fine in quality because you want as much contact with those seeds and you don't want them to dry out. And so something that's high in peat moss like this is would be great. There are other things that can work too, but you want it fine and you want it so that it can hold moisture. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take this Jiffy stuff, I'm going to put it in a bucket, and I'm going to start adding water to it. You could do that probably in the bag too. I just like the flexibility of the bucket a little bit. And so you're going to moisten it. You don't want it sopping wet, you just want it moistened. And then we're going to start filling these seed trays. Okay, well, one other advantage of putting this in the bucket here is that I don't have to use the entire seed starter mix. So this is looking really good. It's damp. The nice thing about these containers is that every one of them has a pretty good hole at the bottom of it. So if you get a little bit of moisture, that moisture will drain out into that tray beneath it. But this is good. This took actually a lot of water. I ended up using about 48 ounces or so of water in order to do this. So I think that the consistency is pretty good here. Was able to just mix it around. It's so funny, with this whole quarantine thing, everybody and their mom is making sourdough, and we've got our sourdough starters. My wife and I had these competing ones. I think mine is winning, but she is making loaves with both, and they're awesome. Anyway, but I feel like I'm mixing water and flour together as I'm doing this, so I'm all practiced up. All right. What I want to do now is I want to take and put, just start scooping this into the seedling trays. The fuller they are, the more soil there's going to be, and you're going to have a more consistent root structure you know, you're gonna have a larger thing that you're gonna be able to transplant, but they can get by with a little bit less. It doesn't have to be entirely topped off. And you want it to, you don't want to smush it down there, you just want to kind of lightly compact it. Okay, so I've got these, you know, seed starter things. This is not rocket science. Fill the thing with the starter. You got that, you're smart. Something also that they have that you can buy, Jiffy has, and I had these as refills for another starter kit a while ago, are these little peat moss discs. And what happens is you put these in the little circular areas, these fill with water because you pour water around them, and they end up growing really tall with this kind of fine mesh, and you're able to treat these almost like as a seed starter as well. These are really convenient. So this is what you're using, totally fine too. So the 4 things that I grabbed to plant in my starter, which are things that we like, I grabbed a tomato, I grabbed a jalapeno pepper, and I grabbed 2 different types of kale. Kale is going to be making up the bulk of this thing. Kale is going to be making up the bulk of our plantings. I want to just have a bunch of kale plants. We've got kids who want to take that kale and throw it into smoothies and into salads and make kale chips and then get stalks of it and slap each other with it. Okay, you know, when you're planting your garden out there, the soil doesn't have to be incredibly level because it doesn't matter, you know, what's going on, if it's rising or falling. But when it comes to starting seeds, you do want the soil to start off with a very level top because you're planting very, very low beneath the surface. Very, you know, it's near the surface. The depth rather is very small. And so, you remember when you're a kid and you have that paper towel, the moistened paper towel in the plastic baggie, the sandwich bag, and you've got the seeds in there and they're germinating. And then you can kind of see the seeds start and push out. I feel like every kid has done this. Well, this is really similar to that, only rather than it being in a bag, which then what are you supposed to do with those things? This is starting in a little bit of soil, it's germinating, and then it's going to put out some roots and create a little root ball for us that we're going to then be able to transplant into the garden. So, hey, when you got these packets especially of your seeds, you want to pay close attention to the back. It gives you a few things, lets you know when to actually propagate them in the backyard or outside. So you have to pay attention to frost. We don't have to worry about that indoors. But what you do want to pay attention to is the planting depth of the seeds, as well as the eventual spacing. If you only have 10 square feet and each plant is going to take 1 foot, you don't want 20 plants unless you're going to give some away. Or if you want to, you know, maybe have a couple of backups just in case, that way you're planting the most vigorous out there. But this will let you know, with the space that you have to plant in, essentially how many plants you're able to do based on the spacing that they're recommending. So I've got tomato, I've got jalapeno pepper. I'm going to do something where I'm going to plant just 6 of the tomato, 6 of the pepper, and then the rest of them are going to be both of the kales. One is going to be the premier kale and the other one's going to be the dwarf curled kale. Because we're going to eat way more of those than we are jalapenos. What you're also going to need is a pencil. The pencil is going to be not this end of it, but this end of it. We're going to put a little divot in the soil. We're going to drop a little pinch of seeds in there. And we do a pinch of seeds instead of just a single seed because we don't know that 100% of them are going to germinate. And you also want to make sure that you're able to choose from the strongest ones. And so once these are germinated, they'll put up some initial set of leaves, a first set of leaves, and you're going to be able to tell from those 2 or 3 seeds exactly which one is doing the best, and you'll just snip off the 1 or other 2 that aren't doing as well, leaving just the strongest one. So we're going to get started on this. We're going to make sure that this is level, and when I go through, I'm just going to be putting a little divot in here, about 1/4 inch down is the instruction on each of these seeds. And so it's easier for me just to go through the entire thing and just push this pencil down. Okay, I've got all of these little dimples in here. Again, we're just creating a little trough for it to sit in. The main thing is going to be we're going to tip and kind of just cover over the seeds with soil. Another thing you want to have handy is a little spray bottle with just water in it. And what you're going to do is after these are planted in here, we're going to go through and spray them down to keep the top very moist and kind of let the soil settle down over that seed. So now we're going to just open up our peppers and our tomatoes and our kale and start propagating. Before you do this, you want to make sure you have some plant labels because I want to know what I planted in here. I'm going to remember right now, but tomorrow or 4 days later, or if this gets rotated around, I want to make sure I know exactly what I've got growing where. So make sure you've got some plant labels, either a piece of tape or a popsicle stick with the information on it, or some little white plastic labels, whatever. All right, let's get cracking on this. Now this is again going to be in conjunction with the Spider Farmer LED grow light, and so these are going to get more sunlight than they normally would be outside. So we should expect to see it be a little bit faster. I'm not going to be doing a side-by-side test in this case, but yeah, it should go without saying that more sunlight for something that needs sunlight means that you'll get more results out of it. Okay, so I'm going to put some of these seeds in my hand at first. These little jalapeno seeds. If you've ever crunched into a jalapeno, you know how the flavor, no real smell with these. And again, I'm doing a pinch. When I do a pinch, probably grabbing, in that case I grabbed like 3 seeds, and so that's okay. So we'll do jalapeno over here. Okay, and you notice I've got some left. You guys have planted before, you figure it out. Just take them and put them back in here. Seeds can be stored year after year, although the germination rate, the percentage of the seeds that are going to germinate and turn into other plants are less the older the seeds are. So what you want to do is you want to save these in a very cold climate, like in a fridge for sure. Freezer could also work as well. You want it to be dry and you want it to be cold, and that'll help keep kind of those things preserved. So jalapenos are there. Just to give you an idea, I just grabbed some little scrap paper and I just put a J at the top for jalapeno. And so that's going to let me know they don't have to be super intensive in terms of, getting special, placards or whatever. You could just do with this. So what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to put some of the soil. I'm just kind of sliding some of the soil on top, patting it down a little bit just to cover the seeds. We're not trying to bury them, we're just trying to cover them with a little bit of soil. And when we do that, we're going to very lightly tap it down, because what we want is we want that seed to make good contact with the soil around it, so that way it kind of triggers it, lets it know that it's time to grow. So we do that by covering it and then by just lightly pressing down. And it's also a good idea to just spray it, and this will make sure that top layer is nice and moist. That'll help it to touch the seeds. Okay. So jalapeno is done. Now we're going to move on to the tomato and then the kale. Okay, so these are all done. All the seeds are in there. It's time to put on our little canopy here that's going to allow these the little seeds to germinate like they do when they're in that moist environment in that paper towel. And so what's going to happen is we're going to let these go until we start to see the evidence of germination. And once we see that germination, we're going to take this lid off. Partly because at that point you don't want mold to start to develop or for any of the pieces to start rotting. So this is just going to stay on here to create a moist environment during that time. Now I've got this wire rack thing that I found a place in my garage where I've got a hook above me here I can drape and hang the LED grow light, and this can sit right on top of it. And that's going to be perfect. The grow light's going to come down and just give this tons and tons of light. So what I need to do first is I need to run power up and over, and then I'm also going to hang the LED grow light from the little strings they provided for that, these little ratcheting pulley things. So I'm going to set that up right now. Wow, this thing is so bright. I forgot how bright it was until I plugged it in, and it totally lights this whole area up like daytime. When you are doing this for seedlings, they They have like different height that you're supposed to do it from the soil for germination, then for seedlings, and then for veggies. So right now it's supposed to be 24 to 30 inches. So I'm just going from the top of the soil like 25 inches. And they recommend for veggies for it to be on for 18 hours a day. And so I've got it plugged into a timer over there that you're able to just, one of those on and off timers. So that's going to be managing it. So all I'm going to be doing is coming in here, making sure each day I'm going to lift this off. I'm going to spritz it down with a spray bottle, so that way that there's moisture in there. I'm going to be looking for those signs of germination again. And once that germination's there, I'm going to take this lid off of here and begin lowering this light to get closer to it so it can really spur the growth on. So this is how you start seedlings indoors. Whether you've got this LED like a spider farmer or some sort of other method, some other type of grow light, this is totally accessible. And again, this is going to let you get your veggies out into the garden a lot faster. You're going to be able to successively plant them. I noticed that from planting to harvest, this kale normally takes, it says 55 to 65 days, for example. And so 55 to 65 days from putting it out there means you're not getting any productivity at all. Whereas right now we've got kale growing out there, we have tomatoes growing out there, we've got Swiss chard growing out there. So that's producing while this is also growing. So you see how accessible this is. We're going to be following the progress of this along. So I'm going to be coming, I'll do like a video maybe once a week, maybe do some cool time-lapse stuff where you're able to see the little seeds grow. That'd be kind of cool. Hey, what ideas do you have? I'd really love to see if there's anything you're seeing in this setup. This is still kind of a work in progress here. I like how we've got the setup here, but if there's something you're thinking, hey Cameron, you better be thinking about XYZ, let me know, because I'd love to, catch something before I make a mistake here. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Busy Gardener, where we look at how to start plants indoors using an LED grow light. And hey, if you're interested in this Spider Farmer SF-1000, I'll put a link to it in the description below. Appreciate you as always. If you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, now would be a great time to push that button. There's that little notification bell too, so you'll know when a video gets posted, and hitting the like thing just makes me feel oh so special. Hey, whether you've got one seedling in your garage growing or 500, until next time, stay busy.